Welcome to From the Trenches, success shortcuts revealed by real-world innovators crushing it right now. I'm your host, Scott Hartley, and we're back with another episode packed with actionable strategies from today's most successful entrepreneurs. If you're tired of generic business advice and ready for real cutting-edge tactics that are working right now, you're in the right place. And today, we're probably going to talk about something that might make you feel like an idiot, but in the best possible way, because my guest just did something that most of us, if we're honest, we're too proud to do. He took his own advice. Now, that's a revolutionary concept, right? But my guest helps other people identify their business constraints and priorities all day long. But when he looked at his own business, he realized he was making the same mistakes as everybody else. That his entire lead generation strategy was basically, well, I hope somebody hears about me through word of mouth, and then I hope that they're brave enough to book a sales call with somebody that they don't even know. And that's it. So he did what any smart person would do. He used his own framework on himself. And he discovered something that, again, if we're honest, it'll probably smack you in the face too. His constraint wasn't pricing, it wasn't his positioning or his marketing budget. It was that he had zero ways for people to really get value from him without jumping straight into a high stakes conversation. Nobody wants to hop on a call with a stranger and be like, I'm going to get sold. Well, the solution that he came up with and the way he reverse engineered it is something that you're definitely going to want to steal. So let me introduce you to Steve Johnson. Steve helps SaaS and AI companies scale revenue when things break. Most CEOs hit a point where growth gets messy when sales stall, they need to get control, or what worked before actually stops working. Well, Steve works with CEOs and sales leaders to cut through the noise, refocus on the key constraints to revenue, and build a simple, repeatable path to growth. He spent 20 years in sales and GTM leadership, scaling companies from early stage to pre-IPO. Steve also knows what good sales looks like and how to help teams get there faster with a practical, pragmatic approach by assessing what's working, fixing what isn't, and building systems at scale. No fluff, it's just a clear plan and the coaching and accountability to execute it. Steve, I'm so excited to have you on the call today.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for probably the greatest introduction I've ever had personally. And you were able to use the word idiot and my name and still make me sound good. So thank you. Thank you.
You're
It's a
welcome.
first.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, what you shared, is like, okay, here's my story. Here's kind
Yeah.
of like what I've experienced in my own business. And of course, thinking about it, it's like, you know what? Steve took his own advice. What he's doing to help other people, he's actually using for
Yeah.
himself. And, a phrase that I always use with a lot of people is like the cobbler's children have no shoes. And it's
Hmm.
a sad fact of business and entrepreneurship. But, if we really want to scale our business and get the results for ourselves, as well as what we're helping our clients with, we need to eat our own dog food and do what we're telling other people to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
just as a little background, Steve and I are both Titans Accelerator members. That's Brian Kurtz's curated mastermind of many of the great minds on the planet. And so I see Steve, usually twice a month at least in our weekly twice a month calls and everything. So that's how Steve and I got to know each other. But before we kind of dive into, this discovery that you had, tell us a little bit more about you and your background and just kind of how you got to where you are today.
You bet, Scott. So, look, I find that I am not a sales guy, and somehow I am helping CEOs with sales. And I'm not a sales guy. I'm kind of a business guy,
Uh-huh.
and so when I look back on my sort of my career to this point, I never fit into a particular box, but a couple recurring themes came up. One is I would start things and they would, sometimes they'd be successful, sometimes not. But, personally, in my own experience, I started a few companies. I had one that was a managed service provider, an IT firm that over the course of a decade got to 7 million in sales and 30 employees. So that was really good.
Hmm.
But I'm not wired up for the IT life. And so I wound up working at a software company and the 17th employee at a software company called C2It Software. And the CEO hired me there to be the, sort of like a generalist who could come in and work on insurance and operations and channel partnerships, and just because of my background and what I had. And, the final project in 2014 was, hey, Steve, let's create a scalable, repeatable sales process so we can grow the company and sell it. And 3 years later, 36 months later, we 7x'd the sales team's productivity, did some unconventional things. We did it bootstrapped and sold and came out the other end. And Scott, that was the most fun I ever had in my adult working life up to that point. And so that's how I got started and got launched. And I'll just add one other point here is that, what I'm doing today is largely to solve the problem that I had when I had my own company, my own managed service provider. We also did, low voltage cabling, telecommunications, and that is, how do you grow beyond word of mouth and
Yeah.
referrals? And I never broke out of that. And there was just too much noise in the sales and marketing space. Not that there weren't the resources, just how do I apply these to me as a business owner, as a CEO, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of what I'm doing comes out of that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, in speaking, because I've got, background in IT as well. I had a local IT service company here in my hometown. And so we kind of share that, that common interest. And of course, we've talked about this before, but I got sick and tired of technology. So that's why I've got out of that space. But
Scott, you and I probably had more hair before we got into the
undoubtedly,
technology
for
business,
sure.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Undoubtedly. But
Yeah.
when we're starting out these businesses like this, no matter if it's
Mm-hmm.
a local business or if it's an online business, a lot of times, the way we get started is through word of mouth. And
Mm-hmm.
at the initial outset, a lot of times you do have a lot of great leads coming in. They're kind of pre-qualified, they're pre-sold on you, all of that type of stuff, and it's great. It helps you get launched and really fine tune whatever your delivery is. But one of the things that you quickly realize is that you can't scale a business really to where you want it to get to just on that word of mouth, and the referrals. And so it's interesting that you've got, kind of that same background, that same experience. And now in what you said is, putting that into a SaaS company and over 36 years, just having a lot of fun figuring out how do I actually grow this. And again, this is a piece that a lot of people miss. What's the exit strategy?
Mm-hmm.
I got to get out of this business some point in time, but people don't think about what's the exit strategy and how am I going to make money on that side of the business as well. And so for you to be able to see kind of both pieces of that puzzle and then bring it all together is really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So Scott, you mentioned something in there that I want to pull out and maybe tease apart really
Sure.
quickly, which is, you mentioned, like, you and I have both had this experience, and most business owners do, where we have to start our business and take a lot of whatever comes in, right?
Mhm.
Because just there's the practicality of paying the bills, but also we'll get these referrals from our clients or word of mouth, or somebody will hear about us and they'll ask us to do something, and it may or may not line up. Sometimes it doesn't line up at all with what we do.
Mhm.
And we say, yeah, I can do that. But usually it's like, maybe 20 to 50% of what we currently do. And then there's this next piece, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, you're doing my desktop support. I have I've heard about this voice over IP thing. That was something that I heard 20 years ago, right? Like,
Mhm.
what, how about one of these new phones? Or I heard about this, or, SEO. Now I'm hearing about AI search, right? Can you help me? Right.
Yeah.
And so obviously, as a business owner, we have to adapt to what the market wants. But what I think one of the issues is, and I look back, one of the key mistakes I made and that I see commonly with CEOs, is that we find these opportunities, we're opportunistic, it feels like growth, but maybe it's a short hill, right? Like,
Mm.
we want to climb a mountain, but really, this is taking us up a hill. And all of a sudden, to your point, we are spread out and it's hard to scale because
Yeah.
our attention is focused in a lot of different ways. And one way to think about it, and, again, advice to my younger self, okay, to do it all over again. Um, Looking at those referrals as opportunities to see what works, what doesn't, what we're good at, what we're not, what's profitable,
Mm-hmm.
What's easy business, what's hard business, seeing what's in common with those, and
Yeah.
then doubling down and deliberately trying to find some more of the business that's quote easy or that
Mm-hmm.
comes to us. And there's a process that we can do to kind of reverse engineer our ideal customer or ideal customer profile if we have a few clues from some of that business. So yeah, it's a trap, but that trap can also become a way forward if we can get out of the urgency and the busyness quickly enough to to start to double down on a few of the bets that seem to be paying off.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of at that starting phase, you're trying to figure out, where's my niche? What exactly do I love doing? How can I best serve clients and things like that? So sometimes you do have to explore, but a lot of times we get stuck in that. Like I'll do anything and everything, and then we never break out of that mold. So.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So tell us a little bit. Obviously, I teased a little bit of the story is that, you kind of like took a look at your own business and you were like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I've got, all these leads and everything that are coming in through word of mouth, but, I realize that I don't have, basically any lead magnets that are attracting people to me to where that they can come into my, to my fold without having to get on a call because a lot of people they don't have time to get on a call. They're hesitant to get on calls because they're afraid of the hard sales that people always make to them. A lot of different objections and things. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so kind of take us down that journey, how you discovered that this was an issue, and then what are you doing right now to mitigate against that?
Okay, great. Gartner did some research, and I went to look for it, and I can't find it. So maybe it wasn't Gartner research. Maybe I got it somewhere else. But there's two things. One is that the trend of the buying process, especially in the B2B space and certainly in the B2C space, is that more and more of the sales process is happening online before a buyer ever talks to a salesperson or talks to us if we're
Hmm.
solopreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Sixth Sense came out with a study recently that said now there's two metrics here that so one is inside of the other, okay? But they said 80% of B2B buyers perform 70% of the sales process before they ever reach out to the vendor or the
Mm.
company. So what that means, one way to think about that is if their decision process, because like a B2B process could take 1,000 hours or 100 hours inside of a business. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's use that for example. That means that out of the 100 hours that they're going to spend deciding what solution they're going to bring in, let's say it's a software, a SaaS platform, that they're going to spend 70 of those hours on their own.
Hmm.
And then they're only going to spend 30 of those hours, and at hour 70, they're going to reach out to maybe 3 to 5 or 7 vendors.
Hmm.
And then of the 30 hours, you've got to split that with, let's say it's only 3 vendors. That means you only get 10 hours of their attention, okay? In the rest of the, maybe it's probably less than that, but let's say it's 10 hours. And of that 10 hours, maybe you'll spend 2 or 3 hours on the phone with them if you're lucky, or on a Zoom or something. So out of this big process, like you have a very limited amount of time
Hmm.
to leverage and advance the opportunity and help shape the decision process so that it comes to you in your favor. So that's one trend
Yeah.
that's going on. Is that's a long way of saying, hey, people need time with you before they spend time with you.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
they need time
Absolutely.
with you before they spend time with you. So, what do we have, online for people to engage with us? So that's the one thing. The second thing is why would they want to spend time with us, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you think about all that we're doing, like we have one life. We're all spending our lives, our time. Maybe we don't think about it this way, but Scott, you and I have decided, for whatever reason, that we've decided to trade our life for this time together right now on the podcast.
Yep.
The people listening to this have decided that they want to spend their life listening to the podcast. And they might be taking a run or driving or whatever, but you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
So, what's valuable enough to someone that they would be willing to trade of all the things they could be doing to spend that time with you, or in this case, with me?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the value? What can I offer? And so that's, so those two concepts, those two ideas, sort of the facts and then the concept coming together got me thinking about, okay, so how can people engage with me online? And and so now I'm building that. And one of the key things that I'm building and putting out there is a survey so that somebody can get a scorecard and do their own self analysis so that they can understand where they're at. Like one of the big problems that we all have, and CEOs especially, is simply just having clarity about what the problem is that they need to solve. It feels bad. We need more sales. We need more we need more leads. We need more sales. Okay, great. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so by asking a few clarifying questions like, hey, what's your sales number for next year? What do you want to hit? What's your big constraint? What's the primary constraint to get there? And what's your plan to blow out that constraint? Just simple things, right?
Mm-hmm.
To start to think of to take this issue that they've addressed and turn it and just clarify it to the point where they can start to take action and do something about it. So that's what I'm trying to do with my tools that I'm putting online. And the first one is going to be this scorecard so that somebody can go to my site, take the scorecard, evaluate where they at, if they're a CEO, whether they need to focus on sales and selling, leading sales, or scaling sales. And if, let's say, they've gone all the way to scaling sales where they have a sales leader, but they've maybe missed a step, like defining a repeatable sales process, they know where the gaps are, where they can start to, fill the holes and get an idea of where they're at and what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, so with that process that you just laid out, like you're really
Uh-huh.
kind of marrying both of those pieces of that, 100 hours that you were just talking about. So they're doing their own research. They're, doing that investigation and looking up vendors and looking up, solutions for what they think is their problem. And so, with the tool that you're building, that survey, that quiz is like, okay, I'm helping you do your research. You can do this offline. You can do this, as part of that 70 hours. But at the same time, they're getting that interaction from you because now you're providing that massive value.
Absolutely. And Scott, the other thing too that I know you've experienced and I've experienced is that like you're the subject matter expert, okay? And so when somebody comes to you with an issue that you can help them with, they
Hmm.
don't even know the right questions to ask necessarily to
Right.
help solve the problem. So being able, if they are going to spend 70% of their time before they even talk to us, let's at least, it's an opportunity. And what I hope the survey or the scorecard is, and the other things I'm going to put out, I hope that it gives them the tools that they need to think about their problem clearly
Hmm.
so that instead of jumping into a swimming pool because they think they need to get to the other side of a swimming pool, they can put on running shoes and start running the marathon instead, right? Start
Yeah.
training for the marathon instead. Yeah.
Yeah. And, with that clarity, because like you said, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And so giving them that clarity, that's
Mhm.
going to speed up, their buying process. It's going to speed up their time to a resolution. It's going to speed up their getting results that they really, really want because you're providing that massive value. And of course, we all know that, sets you apart from everybody else because you're leading them down that journey. Interestingly
Mhm.
enough, over the past 3 weeks, I've been doing a lot of in-depth research, and so far I've researched about over 100, 150-ish companies. I've gone to their websites and everything, doing some research. I am shocked. I think at least 85% of them do not have any resources on their website. There's no way to opt in. There's no free lead magnet. There's no quiz. There's no, download this PDF. Many of them don't even have, hey, get my newsletter, even though nobody wakes up and says, hey, I want another newsletter today.
Sure.
But they don't have any way. The only two options that I saw on a majority of the website was schedule a call or buy now. And you're
Hmm.
missing so many opportunities.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. So schedule a call, buy now, or I guess what we're advocating for now on this call, Scott, is make a better decision now, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and here's the content to do it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just so surprised by that. And I get, and I followed Story Brand, Donald Miller's stuff, for a long, long
Mhm.
time. And he's got some great, great philosophies. And, obviously you want to have a primary call to action, which is, hey, I want to get you on a call because now you can have that back and forth, that discussion. But you got to realize that 80, 90, 95% of people aren't ready for that. You need to give them a secondary call to action. And in your case, it's going to be this, the scorecard where it's like, okay, you're not ready to talk to me just yet. I get it. No worries. Here's a
Mhm.
great resource for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that
absolutely.
that's awesome. What's
And
kind of the
hey, Scott, if
yeah,
I could, just one last
sure.
item on that. At the end of the day, I'm trying to do three things with my clients and with my prospects and really any CEO, because I'm not going to wind up working with every CEO, right? But I do want to help them all.
Yeah.
And the transformation I want to take them on is from, being unclear and feeling like sales is out of control to
Hmm.
being in control of sales and
Yep.
having secure sales. Like that's the journey I want to be able to take people on.
Hmm.
And there's really three things that I can do to help them. One is I can bring clarity to their situation. Okay. The second thing I can do for them is I can bring some energy, some idea about like, hey, what are the consequences of not doing something versus the
Hmm.
benefits of doing it?
Yep.
And just give them a view of the truth on that. And the third thing is just help them identify the constraints and unconstrain them or get past them. Okay.
Yeah.
And those are the three things that I'm trying to just help them and accomplish with this scorecard and the other content that I'm going to put out as well. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's fantastic. Like helping people, with things that you already know that they have a problem with. Here's, the solution to that. Now, something else that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
in, the form, filling out to be on the podcast. I think that this is so important because a lot of times when I'm consulting and talking with people who are especially B2B, they're B2B type of sales, I see so many people think that I've got to get this business to buy. I've got to,
Mm-hmm.
this business needs to become a client. But, one of the things that you teach is that you're actually selling to people in the business. The business is, this inanimate object, but you've got people that you're relating with, people that you're, building those relationships with. I'd like you to talk just a little bit about that. What's the importance of shifting from I need this business as a client versus I need John or I need Sally to be my advocate or be my client?
Scott, I'm so glad you brought this up because this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see consistently across the board. And I suspect when you did your survey of 150 businesses, you probably saw this on the websites too, is we sell to the business, we don't sell to the people in the business.
Hmm.
And we think about our product or our solution, whether it's a product or a service or a mix, right? As a set of features and benefits that help a business do what it needs to do. The reality is that the people that we're selling to in the business have other things that they're worried about that they bring to the table when we talk to them, and they're not even aware of it most of the time.
Hmm.
Things like how am I going to do my next performance review? Will I get my bonus? How am I going to pay the mortgage this month? Okay, I got kids that are starting college in a couple of years. I'm about to start a family. Like all those things are tied into how well they perform in their jobs,
Hmm.
especially when we're selling into a B2B environment where there's more than one person or two people who are making the decision about the budget and the problem to be solved and who's going to be the vendor, right? And all those things.
Hmm.
So keeping that in mind and figuring out how we can help people do their jobs better is super helpful. And then if you tie that to, if you can imagine or even find out what the CEO's top 3 to 5 initiatives that the business are focusing on for the year,
Hmm.
and tie your solution to the CEO's objectives, chef's kiss,
Yeah.
right? Like you're because if what's the organization's priorities? It's the CEO's priorities, right? And
Sure.
so you can kind of tap into that. Let me just give you a quick example that illustrates this. I was working with a record storage company that was a regional record storage company. And when I say record storage, I mean boxes of paper, not exactly in my usual wheelhouse, okay?
Right.
But we came together. They were selling record storage to regional healthcare providers, so doctors provide, like doctors groups and things like that.
Hmm.
And they were selling to either the CFO or the controller, and their main competitor was Iron Mountain. And Iron Mountain had to them, at least for their clients, a customer service issue about finding and retrieving these records that they had to keep due to HIPAA and other requirements. Okay,
Hmm.
the sales process with CEOs and or CFOs and controllers took like 6 to 8 weeks, and they won about 10% of the deals. And what we did is we tried to figure out what the business problems were that record storage solved for the company. And one of them we realized is it helped them if they ever got sued to provide proof of what was going on, and proof whatever. But also the other part to that was, in discovery in a court case, if you don't, like, there's a certain records retention policy, and I think it was 10 years for the medical records. If they didn't destroy records, like if you were to destroy records or emails according to your retention policy, and then you get sued, it's not destroying evidence, right? But if
Right.
if you have, let's say your policy is 7 or 10 years to retain them, and you have 15 years, well, that all becomes open to discovery
Oh,
and
wow.
increases your liability. Okay. So we went and, so I thought through this, and then I said, hey, let's go approach the general counsels at these regional healthcare providers and see if we can get 10 minutes to talk to them about their records retention policy and their liability, and decreasing their liability to future potential lawsuits. And guess what, Scott? Like, all of a sudden, like, first off, they appreciated it. Now you have to help people do their jobs better without them feeling defensive, right? So there's a
Right.
little, nuance there. But they went, oh, thank you. Thanks for pointing this out. And close rates went from, 6 weeks down to about 2 weeks. And success rates went from about 10% to about 35%, depending. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. Product didn't change. Salespeople didn't get better. Okay. But we started thinking about the needs of the people in the business and the
Hmm.
business problems. And if you think about it from a general counsel, your job is to protect the company from liability. And there was a company practice that increased liability. It didn't decrease or control the risk, right? So
Yeah.
that's one way to think about selling to the people in the business, not to the business.
And the general counsel, they'd probably been yelling and screaming for years. It's like, you need to do a better job of managing your records and managing the retention times and everything. But nobody, it's probably falling on deaf ears. So now you've got an advocate in the organization. You're coming alongside, you're empowering them. And then I could also assume that probably from the CFO perspective, now that you've got general counsel on board, it's like, hey, by the way, your liability risk is going to go down. That may save you money because now your insurance rates, may decrease with the less claims that you have, things like that.
Absolutely, Scott. And we don't have time to unpack the whole thing here, but
Yeah.
like, yes, absolutely. And then they look good to the CEO, right? They got something they can talk about at their review, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and yeah, that was some of them. And some of them just quietly said, oh, thank you. We hadn't thought it.
Yeah.
Let's get
But
that taken care of right away, right? So, yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But I love the fact that you brought up, I mean, we have to think about, especially in these corporate environments or business environments of,
Mhm.
what's going on in the daily lives of the people that we are having the conversations with. They want to look good to their bosses. They want to look good. They want to show that they're competent. They don't want to
Mhm.
look stupid. So, they've got to vet their potential vendors really carefully. And if you can, show, hey, I'm going to set you up in the best light, like we're going to help you succeed. And then you can actually do that. You're thinking about them, and now you've got them as a huge advocate for you.
Oh, absolutely. And maybe a shorthand way to think about it is to have the conversation with them from their side of the table,
Hmm.
not our side of the table. Simple, easy to say, not easy to do necessarily, but
Yep.
worth the struggle and effort to get there if you can do it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, and you just kind of illustrated this with your example, having multiple touch points within an organization, especially if they're larger.
Mhm.
You may be dealing with the CFO, you may be dealing with the chief technology officer, general counsel, whomever that is. And so, kind of like talking about email, This is where that segmentation of communication comes into play, because you might have emails going out to different groups of people at, an organization, but you need to talk to them differently, just as you would if you were on a Zoom call. Even your written communications need to have a different message for the different people that you're going to be communicating with.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And maybe we'll do another episode on that sometime because now you're starting to touch on like it's good. You'll hear about people talking about have parallel communications and multiple vectors into an account and this and that. There's a bigger concept there about having authority. Sorry, about advocating and showing leadership without any and driving initiatives without having any official authority within the business.
Mm.
And that's what you just described is the first step towards doing that. And the core, what you're actually can help a company do is, at some point, like we're all lost. Like look at me in my I'm again back to your point about the cobbler and the kids and the shoes, right?
Hmm.
Like I'm a cobbler who doesn't have shoes, and now I'm putting the shoes on. Like we're all busy, and especially in a corporation, everybody's busy with the urgent initiatives. They lose sight of the leadership of, okay, what's the problem? Where's the constraint? How are we going to solve it? And if you
Hmm.
can bring that into especially these larger deals, but even just one-on-one with somebody else who maybe just has a solo company, just to be able to again bring clarity and help them understand the motivation, bring some energy into solving it, and maybe even some hope, and then pointing out the constraint and moving to it. Like that's just taking that pattern and applying it in a large organization. Again, we could talk all day about this. I can give you examples, but
Yeah.
I've seen it work where you can start at the loading dock and wind up in the boardroom. It happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, a matter of, being creative and then, having the right conversations at the right time. So, well, Steve, it's been a great I mean, we've touched on several different things here, it's all been really, really good. I think, as you said, like we could go deep on so many different directions and stuff, but to kind of keep us close to our time here, I know that you're developing a resource that's going to be launched shortly that I think a lot of our listeners will be interested in. Tell us a little bit about this training that you're developing and where people can go to get that.
You bet. So I've created a program and a framework called Fix Your Sales Team in 90 Days. Okay. And it's really easy to find fixyoursalesteam.com, also fixyoursalesteam in 90 days.com. Either one will get you there. And what I'm doing is I'm lining up some short workshops where people can sign up and either get on the wait list for the next one or sign up for one, where we'll spend 90 minutes and go through a methodology to identify, just to clarify the problems and identify, the constraints of what's happening and help, anybody who attends should be able to walk away with knowing where they want to go and a couple of the key gaps, between where they are and where they want to go and how to get there around their sales and revenue. And it could be as simple as, improving your close rate or getting more qualified appointments on your calendar.
Mhm.
But that's, that'll be the beginning. And of course, there'll be the scorecard that they can take to do an evaluation and understand where they're at as well. So all
Awesome.
coming soon. Yeah.
Fantastic. So awesome. Well, Steve, I have enjoyed having you here today. This is a great conversation. I definitely think that we need a part two and maybe a part three, in the
Great.
future. But look forward to having you back. So thank you for your time today. And that's all for today's episode of From the Trenches. Make sure that you go check out Steve's training, Fix Your Sales Team in 90 Days. You can go to fixyoursalesteam.com. We'll put the link in the show notes as well. And then while you're there, make sure you sign up for that. And then if you want to get onto Steve's email list, you can go to scalingsales.com/newsletter. And he's sharing tips and things like, what we've discussed here today that will help you improve your sales as well. And if you're looking to supercharge your email marketing, check out my book, Hit the Inbox, at hittheinboxbook.com. It's packed with 76 pages of strategies to get your emails landing in inboxes and driving sales. Thanks for tuning in today. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. It helps us reach more entrepreneurs like you. And until next time, keep crushing it in the trenches.